Hey my dear people, let me talk to you about an experience that happened on my daughter's birthday, which was December 18th. Okay, so it's winter time, so we were in a mall. We were planning to go to a mall for our birthday celebrations. So my brother sat in the car, and the moment he sat, I smelled something very nice, and he was sitting behind. So obviously, I was able to smell it. Because the sillage was good, and I myself had put on a perfume which was heavy, supposed to be a beast mode perfume, but then I was able to smell his fragrance, but I did not inquire anything. We went to the mall and he passed me by, and then I realized, okay, the fragrance was actually smelling very good. I did not still ask him anything, and I went ahead, and about after 3 hours or so, when we were going back home, I could still smell the fragrance of him in a very nice way. And then I actually went ahead and asked him, what did he put on today? Okay, now before I answer what did he put on, let me go ahead and tell you a confession. The confession is that I always thought that fragrances that are low priced are generally not good. They are just an hype, and they kind of whiff off very quickly, because that has been my experience with some of the fragrances that I've tried, especially in the less than 500-600 rupees price point, and never had really any good very positive feedback about most of them, at least. So the confession was that I've always had this thought, and you can think about it that way, that it could be a bias towards low-end fragrances, and that has now changed because of this particular perfume. Now I'm talking about Whiskey Smoke, okay, the original Whiskey Smoke that came out, and this was the one that my brother was actually wearing. Okay, now as you can see, this bottle is completely exhausted by him. It's a regular thing that he actually wears a lot of the times, and he's got a very small of it, juice left of it. And what drove me nuts was that I couldn't imagine that this was smelling that good. Now, this really is a nice fragrance, and because of which he's been having it for a year plus now. Okay, so at the same time, after about a year, I bought this as well. Okay, although if you notice this, I did just a couple of sprays last year, but then I never really, utilized it, because like I said, this was my perception until when I smelled this. Okay, now after I smelled this, the initial thought for me was that this smells nice. This has got a very beautiful different type of a fragrance, and I realized that it's not actually duping anything. In fact, it smells much more nicer when somebody else is wearing it, and you smell it off them, and you realize that you're smelling actually something which is in a very different price point. It smells like a fragrance in the ballpark figure of 8,000-10,000 rupees or even higher. Okay, now what does Whiskey Smoke have? Whiskey Smoke basically has got a very sweet, boozy, cinnamon type of a vibe with a little bit of a leathery vanilla kind of an accord. Okay, now it does also have a lot of other things like oud, but I don't actually get that as such. In fact, the opening of it is not exactly a winter scent. It has got a winter scent feeling, but it's got a lot of that vanilla, sharp, barbershop type of a vibe as well. And when you put this on, when you put Whiskey Smoke on, for the first few minutes, you also kind of realize that the fragrance actually smells a little like Darij. Okay, now if you've tried Darij has got that typical vanilla aromatic type of a barbershop type of a opening that you get, which is what I kind of smell in this for the first few minutes, and after that it kind of disappears, and then you're ending with, or you will have this entire time you will have a sweet, cinnamony, slightly boozy, smoky kind of a fragrance that you like, with a little bit of a leathery type of an accord. Now, this is not duping any particular fragrance as such, but it works very well. It smells really good. And if you have not bought this, and if you've been like me, who has had a thought like, these are not good, then you can definitely give this a try, because this is really good. All right, so if you notice the video title is basically to talk about the entire whiskey line, Whiskey Smoke line, explained to you. And the first one is to hear about Whiskey Smoke, and I'll talk about performances a little later, because that will come to in some time. Then, like I said, I got Whiskey Smoke Bourbon. Okay, now I was actually thinking this is going to be a more richer version, or something that will have a little bit more of a projection kind of a fragrance. But this is my least favorite fragrance of all of them, because this For some reason, every time I've tried it, I have not liked it because of its super sharp, powdery, animalic, leathery type of an opening. Now the opening is very strong, very synthetic to some extent, but then the leather note on this is very animalic. And if I'm not wrong, this is trying to impersonate ombre leather by Tom Ford. Now, ombre leather by Tom Ford is liked by a lot of people because there are a lot of dupes of it, like Pandora's Noir leather, or if you think about Ahmad al-Maghrabi's leather as well. But then the fragrance has got a lot more smoothness, but here I feel it's very sharp, it's very dense, and this isn't got a lot of soul. So probably the least liked fragrance in this line of fragrances, because the bourbon here is not actually the boozy, not the Jim Beam bourbon or Jack Daniel type of a boozy bourbon. This is more of a note where you are actually kind of getting a fragrance which is heavy on the leather. Now this is supposed to have saffron and a little bit of patchouli and iris, but I actually do not get any of it. I feel it's an out and out more of a leather fragrance. Is this good for winters? In fact, the entire line of whiskey smoke fragrances is definitely for winters. Softer on the projection as well, dissipates very quickly, goes to a very powdery kind of a dry down faster, okay type of a fragrance. The one that is really good and super underrated is the single malt. Okay, now this I got quite recently. Okay, maybe about month and a half back or so. I did get this, although I have not really reviewed any of their fragrances in the past year. I thought, let's do all of them together. The single malt is actually superb, and I recommended this in the Valentine's Day list of fragrances as well, because this I feel has got exceptionally good quality of scent. It is sweet, it's powdery, it's vanilla, it is really impressive in a way to say that the vanilla is absolutely gorgeous. It's got the right amount of sweetness. It's lightly sweet, not very heavy sweet, but at the same time it's got a cinnamon sweetness to it. It's beautiful. It is completely different from the other two and has got the most amazing scent profile that you can expect. Really nice bottle as well. In fact, it is really good. The whiskey smoke and the 12 written here, maybe to indicate some kind of a long lasting or maybe like a 12-year-old type of a whiskey note, but it isn't the case. But beautiful fragrance, so to say, lovely vanilla fragrance. Like you can think about this as a very high quality ingredient and a high quality scent profile, a fragrance that's in the ballpark of like the 20,000-30,000 rupees niche kind of a fragrance. That's how this one actually smells. Now this also talks about tobacco, it talks about whiskey, which is the the liquor note which is present in almost all the fragrances. It talks about cinnamon, vanilla, leather, oud, but again oud is not something that you notice on this at all. But I would say simply go for the DNA. This is a fragrance that you can't go wrong. Even if you buy a small ml of it and try, you will absolutely love it. Especially very good for evening wear, date nights. Super fantastic fragrance to consider, called the single malt from the Beardo Whiskey Smoke line. Now the recent launch that came out from them is this beautiful baby. This is the Firebomb. Okay, now I did get the whole bottle of it because I couldn't find the smaller one, but if you are able to get this, you should definitely consider getting it. It's really nice. The bottle shapes are pretty much the same. In fact, I think the last 3 bottles have got this notch, whereas the original one that came out first as the flat note. Okay, so otherwise this is good. Now this is also very nice. Now this, when you put on, you kind of recognize this fragrance very well, because this is actually an alternate of the popular Tom Ford's Tobacco Veni. Now it has that similar tobacco vanilla kind of a note that opens up. The only thing that I felt was that after that initial 15-20 minutes time, when the projection kind of settles down and when it starts to going into the dry down, you get a little bit of a note that almost resembles like your Killian's Angel Share boozy kind of a vibe as well. But overall this is very beautiful. This is nice, sweet, spicy, and a good amount of tobacco in it, and not so much of a boozy element. Now I believe that this also has the similar note profile, which is basically tobacco, vanilla. It has got whiskey, cinnamon sweetness, and of course a good amount of woody vibe. Now surprisingly, this Smells nice. For the price point, it actually smells pretty nice. It's not a bad dupe at all. But if you're looking at a good dupe of tobacco Veni itself, then I think you can go ahead and buy something from Maison Alhambra or Alarmine, tobacco wood as such. But considering the inspiration of the DNA and how they've tried to work the boozy element to this particular DNA, this is pretty decent that way. That's why the whiskey part, the boozy part of the cognac whiskey, sweet boozy note is remaining here. And that's why I said when the vanilla note and the tobacco notes drives down a little, you kind of get the boozy element that you kind of get in fragrances like Killian's Angel Share. Now, what do I think about this? This one also is very, very good. Okay. Now, overall, when we talk about performance of these fragrances, now the projection itself in all of them doesn't last more than 20 minutes time, because these are mass produced fragrances, and obviously when you do such a mass producing fragrance, the concentration levels of the oil in them will be much lower, so you don't actually expect them to project for 45 minutes, 1 hour, for so forth. You will get about 20 minutes to 30 minutes of projection. After that, the fragrance goes into a more linear mode and kind of goes to a dry down. Now in dry down, in some cases fragrances work really, really well. They are long lasting. Like whiskey smoke, you will easily get about 5-6 hours time. This surprisingly does more, 7-8 hours of lasting. In fact, you can smell it on 10-12 hours also if you're using indoors. Okay. Now, predominantly, if you're going to get compliments, I think you will get from these three fragrances: the original, the bourbon, and the single malt will definitely garner compliments for you. Now, the single malt does last a little lesser. Okay, it does probably about 3 to 4 hours, though this is supposed to be their most expensive fragrance, I think, in the range. This one doesn't actually, for me, last so much. I'm not sure if for you, if it does last, you can check. This is also okay. Again, it does about 3.5-4 hours time. But like I said, I did not really like this so much. Okay, so single malt is absolutely a favorite for me in this, because it really smells something super classy, super hype. Okay, now if you are looking to spend less than 1,000 rupees for gifting purposes, especially for your boyfriend, and you want a fragrance that is manly, that is masculine, that is dark, complex, sweet, boozy, on that segment of fragrances, then you can consider getting this, because they really are good in terms of how somebody would smell you off after a few minutes. Of course, they do not have the smoothness or that level of blend that you would expect in some high-end Middle Eastern fragrances also. But for the price point, they are actually surprisingly very good, and I have learned a very good lesson that not to have a bias or not to judge a book by its cover. These are really, really good, impressive fragrances that I liked, and I thought, let me talk to you about all of them. Now, if you kind of like this type of a video, definitely hit the like button, subscribe, and comment, and let me know if you would like me to do a line of fragrances like this of some other brand or some other series as well. If you like the video, hit the like button, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you on another video. Until another time, take care. Bye bye.